This is the web assessment screencast for Rachel Jane Stanovic. My name is Sarah Bender. I'm an associate photo editor with Wonderful Machine. There's a lot of really beautiful work on your site, Rachel. I'm particularly fond of this beautiful portrait, this very elegant woman. I think it's composed beautifully and retouched beautifully. I really love your font choice up here. It's just very, very clean, easy to read, and clearly you. I thanks for letting me look at your work, and we'll get started. The first area I'd like to cover is your branding. So when I am mentioning branding, I'm talking about things like your name, the name of your business. That carries over into your URL. It carries over into your social media accounts. It carries over into your letterhead. So keep that all in mind as we're talking about this. The first thing that I'd like to cover here in branding is the fact that you're dual branded. Right now, you're calling yourself Jane Vision and Rachel Jane Photography, which is going to be very confusing to potential clients. Best practice is to choose one brand, and ideally that brand would include your name. So for you, I might go with Rachel Jane Stanovic Photography. I know that you mentioned there's some privacy concerns there, so I'll let you address those how you think it's appropriate. But also, when you do a Google search, here you can see that I searched for Rachel Jane Photography, and the first person that comes up is this person in Orange County, California. And it looks like, she's got, here's another one, Costa Mesa, Overland Park. And then you're coming up down here. So we just want to be able to distinguish you from other photographers, particularly in organic searches. And by using the brand name Rachel Jane Stanovic Photography, you're helping yourself stand out. Also, in your branding, I would highly recommend that you have a logo developed. This is fine and it's clean, but you really want to help yourself stand out. So consider, that single branded logo. Make sure it shows your personality and complements your work. Perhaps use a little bit of color, or a beautiful font in some way that really just shows who you are. Also, under the branding umbrella is your font, and I just wanted to talk about that a little bit more. What you have right now is Planet Family, and what I love about it is how clean and easy to read it is. I know you mentioned Vanity Fair as being a publication that you would aspire to work to. To work for. And if we go to their website, you can see that you actually have a really similar font to theirs. They're both in the sans serif family. The only difference that stands out is that Vanity Fair has a bit of a thicker font. So you have the same variation, like a thinness and then a thickness in the letters, but theirs is just thicker. And so you might want to take that that thought back to when you have that logo created and the kind of font that you're going to use across your website and your other branding, and just keep that Vanity Fair style in your mind. Okay, from here I'd like to move on to your template. So one of the things that I like about the template that you have chosen is that you have this navigation that stays at the top of the screen no matter how far down you scroll. I also like that you have these smaller thumbnail images. It's really helpful because a client can see your work in an overall view. With that being said, I am struggling a little bit with how the images get cut off. You can see, like, it doesn't matter where I try to put the photo that I'm looking at. Like if I'm trying to look at this one, then when my eye goes over here, these people are cut off at strange angles, and we want to avoid that. So, these photos, the grid pattern itself needs to be smaller. The other issue that I have is with the navigation. And I know I said that I really like that it stays at the top of the page, but the fact that it slides over top the photos is very distracting. So you want that top navigation to remain static. Also, with the template that you've chosen, I like that you can click into each individual image, but what concerns me is that there's no option for me to toggle between the individual images in this view. There are two options you can take for improving your template. The first one is just to remain on format. I know that you said in your questionnaire that you really like how easy it is to use. And of course, the more user-friendly it is for you on the back end, the more likely you are to update your portfolio. And that's really important. So don't feel like you need to go off of format, but if you're going to continue using format, what I'm going to recommend is that you switch to this Amazon template. You can see here that the images are a little bit smaller. When you click into them, they have this arrow that allows you to toggle between them. And then the navigation stays static at the top. So that's one consideration for you. If you're, as you're going through the rebranding process, if you feel like a natural part of that is to move your website, we recommend to all commercial photographers that they use Squarespace. And there's several reasons for that. One is because it's very easy to use. There are lots of customizable templates, and it's very inexpensive. I just redid my own website, and I did it on Squarespace, and I think I paid about $140 for the whole year. So it's super cheap. If you decide you want to go with Squarespace, I'm going to recommend the Talva template. Again, it has a really similar feel to what you're currently doing. You can see that it has the overall layout. And then when you click in, again, there's that arrow so you can toggle between the larger images. The navigation is up here at the top. It's nice and tidy, and it remains static. Okay, from here, I'd like to move to discussing your galleries. So you currently have your work sectioned off into portraits, senior portraits, documentary, tear sheets, and exhibitions, and then you have this About Me section. In your questionnaire, you expressed interest in expanding on your portrait work to include more storytelling around your individual subjects. And given your portrait skills that I can see here in this gallery, as well as the work that I can glimpse in the social documentary, I think that is a really manageable goal, and I highly recommend that you move forward with that. I do think it's important for you to recognize that Kansas City is not an overly saturated market, and so diversifying your portfolio to the point where you're comfortable is going to be more beneficial in terms of the kinds of clients that you can reach. I think you easily could continue on with the portraiture. I think a natural extension of that, which I'm seeing in photos like this one, would be corporate. This is another great portrait. This is another great corporate sample. I know that you mentioned doing some celebrity work, and I think that that is possible. Although one of the things I want you to keep in mind is that just based on your location in the country, you may have to sort of adjust your idea of what a celebrity is. So, maybe not Hollywood celebrity or a Broadway celebrity, but think about it on a local level. Are there politicians? Are there local people in your community that are making a difference that you could be photographing for smaller publications? So think about celebrity in that way, but I think that's also a good fit for you. And then I do think you could move forward with your documentary work, and specifically social documentary. As you're thinking about your gallery names and what you're going to be including in those galleries, it's a good time to start thinking about the kinds of projects that you could do, some self-assigned work that would build out those galleries. And one of the areas that I'm not seeing a lot of work in is that celebrity component that we were just talking about. And a really great thing for you to do is to kind of create a more stressful shoot situation where you have limited time, to not only to get the shots that you need, but to also interact and engage with the celebrity or the person that you're going to work with, um, which of course is going to result in their personality coming through in the end result. So, can you create a portrait session that's just more intense, where you have less time to engage and more um, and more technical components to master? Okay, from here, I'd like to talk about your galleries in detail. Um, just in general, it's important for you to remember that in each of these galleries, so we talked about portraits, corporate, documentary, celebrity. You want to be displaying the kind of work that will appeal to the types of clients you want to work for. So if you go back, you can really study Vanity Fair, and this is a great example. You know, take a look at that. He's clearly not on the white seamless. It's been captured on location, and so just kind of keep those things in mind as you're building out these galleries. What's going to appeal to clients? In your own galleries, I can see that you are a very strong portrait photographer. But what I feel is lacking, or what I'm having a hard time understanding, is what is the goal of your portrait work? Right now, I just feel like you took your most beautiful portraits and you just put them all in one gallery. Um, the edit isn't very thoughtful, and therefore it's not as cohesive as it could be. So, a great exercise you can take yourself through, and I want to go back up here to this gentleman here, because I think this is a good example. So here you have an environmental portrait, but I'm having a hard time getting an overall sense of this person's personality, especially because it's out of context. So you need to give your portrait some more context, and the best way to do that is to think about the surroundings of the person, as well as the details of maybe something that they have on their body. So maybe it's a beautiful pin or mismatched socks. Perhaps it's a tighter shot of his face. Perhaps it's a tighter shot of the way that his hands are clasped together. But think about not only photographing your subject using different lens lengths, using different focal lengths, but think about the things and the environment around your subject that you could photograph in support of that person's personality. And then take between 5 and 7 of those, and see if you can put them together into a story that really lets the potential client learn more about your subject. It will show the potential client that you're a storyteller, and it will show the potential client that you have the skills to put together um, visually appealing work samples. One of the things that I really love about your portrait gallery is that you're not afraid to take like a studio shot like this, and an environmental shot like this, and a beautiful shot in color like this, and put them all together. What's challenging is that I don't necessarily feel like the edit here is cohesive. It feels more random and like it's a catch-all for your portraits. So if we go back up to this gentleman and what we talked about, with creating a small series of images that helps the potential client see that you're a storyteller and that you can really bring out a person's personality visually, what you want to do is make sure that, if you've got those few images here, that whatever you move to next, like this woman, that this and this would relate to each other or flow in some way. So it could be something as simple as, this is an environmental portrait, so this should transition into another set of environmental portraits. Or this is a black and white studio portrait, so it should segue into another black and white portrait, another black and white studio shoot versus this like color, what feels like a corporate shot. You've got some really unique processing in your portfolio here. One of the things that I love and I keep seeing throughout your work, it's all the way at the bottom, is okay, this woman, for example. I love this like light, airy, fresh feeling that you're giving to this photo. And I think that you can see it over here too. You're definitely creating your style with that, these beautiful bright whites. And so I want to encourage you to continue with that style. I just want you to watch your processing because sometimes it's taken a little too far. So this guy, he's a great example. He's light, fresh, airy, beautiful. I can see, some of these natural shadows that make him who he is as an individual. He's a human being. He's not, we don't want to see him as perfection. It's not a beauty shot. But we go down here and it's a portrait of this woman. And again, not a makeup or a beauty shot, but the detail here is lost on her face. It's like you're trying to make it too perfect. So bring those whites back a little bit. Don't be afraid to put some shadows back in there. Perhaps you could set up your lights in such a way that you are creating some of those more natural shadows. So again, just to recap that a little bit, just watch your processing. It's okay to have different processing, but at the very core of it, it should all be the similar style. It should all be your style. Okay, from here, I'd like to go into your senior portraits gallery to give you some examples. So when we're coaching commercial photographers, we encourage them to display their most commercially viable images on their website. When I say commercially viable, I mean imagery that would appeal to the kinds of clients you want to work for. Again, for you, that might be something like Vanity Fair. I know you also mentioned Rolling Stone. So don't be afraid to go to those websites and just really study the kind of work that they have on there. Yeah, so this is like an incredibly commercially viable image for Vanity Fair, right? It's a bit eccentric, it's brightly lit, it's very staged. So, you want to study Vanity Fair, kind of covers a lot of different specialties, but just go in there and get an overall feel for the quality and the style of the image. And then you want to make sure that the work on your site has that same commercial appeal to it, that same viability. So for example, on your own website, let's go back into your portraits gallery here for a second. This image here on the right that I mentioned in the very beginning is it's wonderful and it's incredibly commercially viable. I'm not sure what you did to create the shoot, if you had a high budget or not, but it looks high end, and that's a perfect example. If I go into your senior portraits, so things like senior portraits, family shoots, weddings, those are retail photography, and you want to make sure that that doesn't live on your commercial site. A lot of commercial photographers will fall back on retail photography to make ends meet, or that's where their roots are, and that they're really comfortable in that space, and so they will maintain that part of their business. But it should live on a different site, or you should have orphan links on your own site. So with that being said, you really want to do away with any kind of senior portrait gallery because it's showing the potential client that you're a retail photographer, and we want you to be viewed as a commercial photographer. Okay, from here, we're going to stay on the subject of your galleries, and I would like to go into this documentary area, which I think you have a lot of social documentary talent and that you should be flushing out what you currently have. You have a lot, and it feels very overwhelming. The first thing I noticed about this gallery, which absolutely has to be resolved, is there are functionality issues. So for example, this Faith Women Pray Over Women Seeking Shelter, if I click on it, it takes me right back to the documentary homepage. So you just want to make sure any kind of website functionality that you have is operating at its highest level. There's no mistakes. In addition to functionality, you want to make sure that the presentation you have across all of your galleries is going to be consistent. So if we go back to portraits, again, these are larger and they have the same tile format that you have here. But when you come to this page, all of a sudden you have this heading here and you went into documentary, but it says blog. So it's very confusing and very inconsistent with the other design components on your website. In lieu of this blog format for your social documentary, you want to break this work out into individual galleries. So, or create one social documentary gallery for now, just to kind of get yourself started, that has 20 to 30 commercially viable images. Again, you want to work in those capsule narratives, which you certainly have here. So for example, I would go through here and I would pick out what you feel are the 3 strongest images that tell the story of this particular gentleman, Wilbur Williams. Take those images and put them into a social documentary gallery that has the same feel as the other galleries on your website. Once you have a really strong portfolio of social documentary work, and you're definitely on the right track there, you could take your documentary gallery, and when the user clicks on it, you could create a series of sub galleries that are project based. So instead of just one gallery that has 20 to 30 images, it would be individual galleries that would have maybe 10 to 12 images, just enough to give the potential client a chance to see how you work and how you can visually tell a story. When you're doing social documentary, I do think it's important for you to have a little bit of context like this. So keep including that when you move to creating subgalleries. But when you have that overall social documentary gallery, it is okay just to display the images. You want your images to talk for you. Okay, moving on from here, we're going to go into your tear sheets gallery. And it's great that you have a tear sheets gallery because it shows potential clients that you're a working photographer. However, you want to make sure that your entire website looks and feels very professional. There are some examples of work in here that I think is really strong. But okay, so this moving forward, it's great. You have this portrait over here that you've taken. It's clearly in a magazine. But the fact that it's either a scan or some kind of picture of the story takes away from some of the validity of it. So you should just reach out to your contact, whoever you did that piece for, and see if they can send you a PDF. There are also a lot of free JPEG to PDF converters. So if you've got, if they happen to send you a JPEG, it's really easy to convert it, or actually vice versa too. If they send you a PDF and you need a JPEG, just get a converter so that you can get it onto your site. Okay, from here, I'd like to move on to your About Me page. It's wonderful that you have an About Me page, and it's important that you continue with that. I would include a picture of yourself, and I would also just be really careful in the bio with your spelling and your grammar. You want to make sure it's perfect. I want to go back just one second. I jumped over it and I'm sorry for that. This exhibitions page, it's amazing. All these awards are really, really amazing, and you should be very proud of them. I would encourage you to eliminate this exhibition section though, and incorporate those into the About Me page. It can be, and it should just be a short list of some of your most prestigious awards. Don't forget to also include a client list on that About Me page. You should also be creating some kind of a contact page. So you want potential clients to be able to reach you easily. And all you have to have on that contact page is direct links to your phone number and your email. You could also continue with, make sure you have your social media on there. And it is, again, like I said, a good place for your client list if you don't put that on your About Me page. Okay, last but not least is social media. So we're going to go back to your portraits gallery just to simplify. And I'm going to page all the way down to the bottom of your site where I find your social media. It is really important this day and age that social media be as prominent as you can make it. So if we go back to the top of the page, I'm going to recommend that you scooch your navigation as far to the left as you can, and then your social media would just live right here. You can see that if we go back to this is Talva again from Squarespace, and they have them again up here in the right hand side. It's super easy on their website, on their platform to put those links in. Most photographers, rightly so, concentrate their efforts on Instagram. So let's get back down here to your Instagram. There we go. So when I open up your Instagram account, I love that your branding is here. And so whenever you decide on that final branding, just make sure it's consistent across everything, including your Instagram account. You want to make sure that your Instagram account has only work imagery. So keep any kind of personal images off of the website. So this is a good example. These are great and really cohesive work samples. I love them. I love these strong, beautiful women in their bright colors. Here's another cohesive edit. That's great. Possibly personal. So again, just avoid the personal and keep it to your professional photos. It is okay if you want to do some behind the scenes stuff, or perhaps you're working on a personal project that maybe isn't quite ready for your website. Potential clients really enjoy when they can get to know a photographer, and that's one way that you can help them understand your creative process. If we go back up to the top of your social media account of your Instagram here, I noticed that you take the user off the site and to an additional Instagram site. So just avoid that. Save this little space here for describing who you are as a photographer, for describing your style, for describing how you interact. Just make sure it remains business focused. Okay, one final thing for you, if we go back to your website, is when we're down here at the bottom, you want to just make sure that your copyright includes your brand name. You want to protect yourself and all the hard work that you've created. Okay, to wrap this up, I just want to go back through and give you a quick summary. So when it comes to your branding, make sure that you have a single brand, that it's consistent, and don't be afraid to incorporate some visual elements, whether that's color or a beautiful logo. Just really think about who you are and how you can represent that in your brand and its logo. When it comes to your template, make sure that you are giving the potential client the option to see your work as individual images like this, like you're doing. Make sure they're not getting cut off at strange points. Allow the potential client to click in and to navigate between each individual image. If you're looking for a new website template, I highly recommend Talva from Squarespace. When it comes to organizing your galleries, I think portrait, social documentary, corporate, and celebrity are solid choices. Remember, when it comes to that celebrity gallery, to think on a more local level as you work to build that. When it comes to your galleries in detail, make sure that the galleries are cohesive, that you're showing the potential client you can be a storyteller. Don't be afraid to mix black and white, environmental portraits, studio work in with in those galleries. Just make sure that they're cohesive as they transition from one to the next. Also, in terms of your gallery, make sure that you're displaying your most commercially viable work and avoiding any kind of retail work such as senior portraits. Make sure that any of the work that you're displaying on your site and the functionality is doing what it's supposed to be doing. When it comes to your About Me page, don't be afraid to add a photo of yourself and make sure that the bio is clean, reads well, and is free of spelling and grammar mistakes. You could also add a contact me page. It should have a clickable link to your phone number and your email so clients can reach you. And that's where you can incorporate some of the exhibitions that you've been in, or the awards, or the clients that you've worked for. Just make lists and put them on the contact page. When it comes to your social media, make sure that it's prominent on your website and users can easily find it. I recommend you move it up here to the right. In addition to that, make sure that you're only displaying your work on here and not personal items. Behind the scenes are just fine. Don't send the user somewhere else. Make sure that if they're viewing your work, you're keeping them. Use this as a way to describe who you are. So that's it from Wonderful Machine, Jane. I hope that was helpful to you. I'm looking forward to talking more in our follow-up phone call. Please make a list of questions, and I will talk to you soon. Thank you.